Welcome to District 12 Speakers Bureau for February. Do you believe that citizenship is a fundamental right that every child of Americans should possess? Do you believe in equal rights and opportunities for all adoptees? Would you support an initiative dedicated to seeking justice for adoptees and to eliminating barriers and hardships faced by them without citizenship? If you answer yes to any of these questions, you are in the right place. Our speaker tonight is a dedicated advocate for adoptee justice and citizenship. With an unwavering commitment to advocacy that mirrors her passion for unraveling ancient health recipes, she's been actively contributing to District 12 Toastmasters since 2019 and proudly holds the distinction of a qualified speaker at the Inland Empire Speakers Bureau. When she's not blazing trails in the realm of adoptee justice, you might find her practicing the nuances of her uphill dance. It seems that when confronted with a hill, she responds with a dance that eloquently rebels against the laws of physics. Can't wait to see that in action. In moments of leisure, our speaker transforms into a culinary maverick, fearlessly navigating the realm of herbs and spices one dish at a time. Our speaker tonight, an advocate, a true child praiser, presenting California is Home, A Journey to Justice. California is Home, A Journey to Justice. Join me in welcoming qualified speaker, Judy Van Arsdale.
Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, I'd like to begin tonight with a question that touches our hearts. How do children find the path to become citizens of the United States? Today, we will dive into this crucial topic and uncover its profound impact on countless individuals and families. Join me as we explore the three pathways. First one is birthright. This includes all children born in the US. Second way is derivative. This pathway includes all children whose parents are naturalized, either one or both of them. And the third way is acquired citizenship through their parents' citizenship here in the US. This includes children who were born overseas, such as military and contract workers who are Americans and gave birth to children in a foreign country. And this also applies to international adoptees. As an international adoptee myself, adoption is not just a legal process. It's a profound human experience. As a child, my life took a 180-degree turn when I became a part of an American family. Speaking of turning points, let's travel back in time to the year Y2K, when Child Citizenship Act, abbreviated CCA, passed Congress and was signed into law by President Clinton. CCA was a game changer for countless international adoptees. It made sure that a lot of them did not have to hire citizenship lawyers to find their way home. It granted automatic American citizenship. It granted the security of belonging, of ensuring that international adoptees were recognized as true members of the American families. Unfortunately, many adoptees were left out of CCA's provisions purely due to age restrictions. Their 18th birthday candles were already blown out. When CCA's effective date came into effect on February 27, 2001. To them, it was like getting a smartphone, but the contract had expired. Due to institutional and parental failure to grant and apply for adopted children's citizenship, many international adoptees born prior to February 28, 1983 were left vulnerable to deportations, and many suffered from a lack of access to other resources American citizens have, including Medicare and Social Security retirement. There are estimates of thousands of adoptees without citizenship. No one knows exactly how many. In some cases, adoptees don't find out themselves until they apply for federal student loans, try to get driver's license, passport, or register to vote. Some even voted several times before finding out they were not U.S. citizens. Can you imagine their fear? They were afraid to reveal that they were not citizens, and having voted, they could be deported. This is a crime, a big crime here in the U.S. And some adoptees didn't even know they were not American citizens until they were ordered to leave. Deportation is a death sentence for some adoptees. Philip Clay was just 8 years old when a Philadelphia couple adopted him in 1983 from an orphanage in South Korea. He grew up and lived here, believing he was an American. 29 years later, in 2012, when he was 37 years old, he was deported back to South Korea. It was really hard for him. He did not know anybody. He did not speak the language. After being deported to that foreign country that he did not remember and could not live in, he hung on for 5 years. On May 21, 2017, 42-year-old Philip jumped from the 14th floor of an apartment building there in Korea. A few weeks later, the South Korean government cremated his body and returned his ashes to his family in Philadelphia. He finally returned to Pennsylvania. In death, Philip Clay did what he could not do in life. In death, Philip Clay finally returned to U.S. legally. Philip's drug addiction crimes may have warranted the punishment he received, but deportation to a country in which he had barely lived? Unfortunately, as a matter of fact, Philip has company, a lot of company. Adam Crapser, too, another adoptee, was deported back to South Korea after having lived in U.S. 38 years. Adam was 3 years old when he and his older sister were found sitting there in an orphanage in Seoul, South Korea. 5 months later, they were adopted by a couple in the U.S. Their first family that adopted them fought viciously and punished the children frequently. Adam remembered being whipped and forced to sit in a dark basement. After 6 years, the couple decided they no longer wanted to stay married, nor wanted the children they had adopted, and the siblings were split up. Adam bounced between foster homes before landing with another family in Oregon. His new parents, Thomas and Dolly Crapser, had a house full of foster and adopted children, as many as 10 at a time. Their punishments, too, were frequent and even more brutal than his first adoptive parents. Dolly slammed the children's heads together and once hit him in the back of his head with a 2x4 after he had woken her up from her nap. Thomas duct taped the children, duct taped their mouths shut. He also burned Adam's hands and once broke his nose when Adam could not find Thomas's car keys. The state of Oregon ultimately charged this couple with dozens of child abuse, including rape, sexual abuse, and criminal mistreatments of children. They were convicted in 1992 on several counts of criminal mistreatments and assault, and Thomas was convicted on 1 count of sexual abuse. When Adam was 16, he got into an argument with Dolly over using the phone, and Thomas kicked him out of the house. He moved into a homeless shelter, then stayed with friends on their couches, and finally in his car. And one day, he broke into the Crapser's home in hopes of reclaiming some of his personal belongings. Police arrested him. He pleaded guilty to burglary and served 25 months in prison. Adam said, "I made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I'm not proud of it. I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way. Since those early teens and difficult adult life, Adam has worked to get his life back on track. He married, became a full-time dad, and tried to settle into a long-term job. The problem was that, legally, he could not hold one. He could not hold a job because none of Crapser's adopted parents, nor the adoption agency that brokered his arrival to the U.S., had ever bothered to file for his U.S. citizenship. Every one of them failed to do the crucial thing for the best interest of the child, Adam. Now, after years of fighting and begging, he was finally able to get his adoption paperwork from Thomas Crapser. And in 2012, Adam applied for a green card. But these applications typically trigger a Department of Homeland Security background investigation, which in Adam's case turned up his old convictions. This criminal record that made him subject to deportation. On January 2015, he was detained, and on February 2016, INS charged him and locked him up, and 9 months later, in November 2016, Adam was separated from his wife and children and deported to Korea, where he knew nobody, where he did not speak the language. After his deportation there to Korea, in January 2019, he filed a lawsuit against the Korean government and the Holt Adoption Agency for violating his rights during his adoption process. And in May 2013, the Korean court found in Adam's favor and ordered Holt Adoption Agency to pay 100 million won, equivalent to $75,000 in damages. Adam now lives in Mexico, where his children and wife in the US can visit him much easier than all the way there in South Korea. Adoptee Mauricio Oviedo Soto, born December 11, 1979, was 8 months old when his mother, Ameleth Oviedo Soto, met her future husband, Kurt Capelli, in Costa Rica in 1980. At the time, Kurt Capelli was a product engineer living there on a contracting assignment for a year, and he fell in love with Yamaleth. When Mauricio was 16 months old, in May 1981, his mother brought him to Wisconsin to be with Kurt Capelli. 2 months later, they were married in Milwaukee. Mauricio was 6 years old. A judge in Milwaukee County, Wisconsin, officially recognized his adoption. With the stroke of a pen, he became Mauricio Capelli, taking the surname of his new American father. Now, Mauricio enjoyed a typical suburban upbringing in the Midwest. He was a Cub Scout, played Little League baseball, and enjoyed the outdoors. He was the only adopted sibling of the 3 Capelli children. And like them, he was an American, or so everyone thought. He had a Social Security card and a document known as a Certificate of Birth Facts, issued by the state of Wisconsin. Nearly 32 years later, on March 12, 2018, Mauricio was deported to Costa Rica. His whole family was residing here in the US. They were determined to find a way for him to return home. Through a network of connections, they reached out to a coyote who demanded 10 grand to bring their son back home. After extensive negotiations, they managed to lower the price to 4,000. And finally, Mauricio was on his way home. However, their hopes were dashed. Mauricio and his group were apprehended at the border. In a moment of desperation, the coyote instructed everyone to squat down while he made a dash in the opposite direction. When he realized they had been spotted by INS officials. As a result, adoptee Mauricio was deported a second time a few months later. As you've witnessed tonight, while some adoptees were fortunate enough to secure citizenship under the CCA, Child Citizenship Act, many were left behind. Condemning those left behind to living as second-class citizens. Adam's tireless efforts to navigate the bureaucratic hurdles and fight against deportations spurred a collective movement among adoptees. Together, we joined forces with advocates and allies in Congress to champion the Adoptee Citizenship Act bill, to amend the CCA and make citizenship retroactive to all adoptees. Congress has been introducing the ACA bill during its every 2-year congressional cycle since 2015. Last year marked a significant progress for our cause, as the ACA bill successfully passed the House. However, our momentum was halted in the Senate. This year, Adoptees for Justice members and allies are eagerly waiting for Congress to introduce the bill and continue our fight for justice. Now that we've explored the challenges and injustices faced by adoptees like Philip, Adam, and Mauricio, I'd like to bring the focus closer to home. My own adoption journey intersects with theirs in a way that underscores the urgent need for action and reform. I've experienced firsthand the consequences of this bureaucratic nightmare. Let me explain. Although I've worked and paid into Social Security since I was 17, Social Security Administration has denied my Medicare and will also deny my Social Security retirement a year from now. All because I cannot show them my original Social Security and green cards. However, getting replacement copy of my green card risks my deportation due to shoplifting convictions. Adoptees for Justice, the adoptees group that I am part of, has launched a California is Home Governor pardon petition for me and fellow adoptee Emily Warnecke. Finally, in the spirit of Toastmasters, where I've learned every speech needs a powerful ending and a call to action. This is where my dear friends, fellow Toastmasters, esteemed guests, and potential signers, you and you can make a big difference. by supporting our governor's pardon petition. Your signatures not only support my journey, but also contribute to building a more just and compassionate society, benefiting us all. Thank you for this opportunity to share my story and for your impactful participation. And I will be putting the petition sign-up links in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. That is an amazing, amazing story. One we had no idea about with you. And I think we're all feeling something in this. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. And I know it must not be easy to share this story. Are there any questions or comments for Judy? I can't see the audience here. Oh, Alicia's our favorite Aussie from Australia, from Sydney area. Alicia.
Thank you very much, Judy. I can reflect on this, and also I understand exactly, because I'm adopted myself, and I'm actually from what the Australians called the stolen generation from adoptees. So from the 1960s, late 1960s to the early 1980s, kids that were born unwedlock were stolen from their parents or taken from their parents by force and were put up for adoption. And I was actually part of that. It's a different sort of situation here, but we were not allowed to see our parents. We had a thing called a veto on our adoption and our birth certificate. So I didn't get my birth certificate until about 5 years ago, my actual first ever birth certificate. So that for me has been a journey, and thank you so much for sharing your story, because I understand the anger, and I'll be signing away on the dotted line for you.
Thank you, Alicia.